and gentlemen, welcome back to the REDX podcast. My name is Haley Johnson. I am your host today. I'm very excited to be back. We have a wonderful guest with us today. We have Mike Simonsen from Altos Research. How's it going, Mike?
Great, Haley. Nice to be here.
Yes, I would love to ask just a quick introduction for people that don't know who you are, don't know what Altos Research is. Could you just give us a brief introduction into who
Sure.
you are?
Sure. So I'm Mike Simonsen. I am the founder, CEO of Altos Research. We are a market data company. We track every house for sale in the country, all the pricing and all the supply and demand. We bubble up these analytics for people who care about such things. So we work with realtors, like tens of thousands of realtors around the country, but also big enterprises, financial institutions, everybody who needs to understand what's going on with the market right now. We've been doing
Perfect.
that for 15 years.
That's awesome. That's kind of what we're going to be talking about today is all things market, all things that real estate agents need to know right now, kind of what's coming up in the spring. So I think you're the man to talk to. So I'm excited to get into this. Before we get started, I do want to tell our audience, if you're watching live on our website, Facebook, anywhere, if you have any questions for Mike throughout the podcast today, please just put them into the chats. We'll make sure to get those answered. And that's a perk of watching it live. So we're excited. Let's just dive in. Mike, why don't we start off talking a little bit more about inventory and prices right now and what things are looking at like right now?
Sure. So inventory is the big story this year. Available
Yes.
inventory. We are in a crisis shortage of homes for sale. We have record numbers of people who want to buy and a crazy shortage of availability.
Right.
So what's interesting is that's true basically across all price points, across the whole country. It's urban and rural. It is yeah. People, a lot of agents feel like, wow, my market is nuts, but it's essentially all markets. There are a couple of markets like downtown San Francisco or Manhattan that cooled off for a little stretch of time last year. But even that's basically evaporated now. And so those markets are stabilized and climbing. And so that shortage of inventory is nuts. So it's hard to communicate, but nationally, just a few years ago, we would start the year with 1 million single-family homes on the market. And then you have January, February, and then by March, inventory starts climbing for March, April, May, or June are the big transaction months. And
Right.
so that's what happened in the last year is we started 2020 at record lows. So normally it's 1 million. You might say normal would be 1 million homes. This year we've got 340,000. So
Wow. Less than half.
less than half of what normal would be. Last year we started at record low already, and it was 750,000 or so. And so we're at half of that. We had a little bit of normal season, and then starting in like beginning of April last year, inventory just plummeted.
Yeah.
What's fascinating is that our current situation is actually not just a function of the pandemic. It's a 10-year cycle that we've been building. Each year we get fewer and fewer homes for sale. And this year it just cratered even further. Some of it was pandemic related, but also it's because mortgage rates are so low and they've
Yeah.
been dropping so aggressively this year that buyers are taking advantage of it. Americans are buying everything in sight.
Right. So that's
So
interesting because why? So then it's because I thought that it was just pandemic related, but I guess even before the pandemic started, it was kind of like you said, already kind of going down. So the pandemic is a factor, you think? It's just not the only one.
yeah, and it's a factor in a few ways. So the biggest factor is actually interest rates. So over the last
Mm.
decade, we've had the average mortgage rate, 30-year mortgage rate over the last decade is 4%. And 4% is crazy cheap historically. So that means it's been really cheap to buy real estate. It's also been really cheap to own it, to hold it.
Mm-hmm.
And so then what's happened over the last decade is you get this phenomenon of people doubling up. You go to buy the second one, and since if the rates are low, you may not have to sell your first one to buy the second one. Now you keep you have an investment property. You have two properties,
Right.
and each time people do that, they take a little bit of inventory out of the resale market. And so that's been really a good deal to do that over the last decade. And so more and more people do that. Each year we've had fewer and fewer homes. And the only time when we had a year-over-year increase in inventory was January of 2019. And 2018, we had 8 months of rising interest rates. So during that time, we had this 8 months of rising interest rates. Things got notably more expensive. It went from 3.8 to 4.8%. And consumers recognized it. And so that was the only time that we had an increase. But since that time, rates have just gone through the floor. And so it's become unbelievably cheap to do that transaction. And it's not just individuals, it's also institutions buying properties and then holding on to them. So then pandemic-wise, yes, there's been a pandemic and there are some conditions where people are choosing not to list, maybe. Mm-hmm. But more interestingly, rates have been so low that it's been such a good time to buy. And if you own, you refinance, and now your payments are super low. So it's really a function of interest rates, and the interest rates are a function of the pandemic partly too. But it's really a long-term scenario. It's also probably means it's going to be a long time to get out of it. It's not just going to be cured when we start going back to work.
Yeah, well, and that's kind of what I was going to see is, I mean, if everything is kind of going, I mean, inventory has gone so low, I don't see how it goes back up. I mean, if interest rates go back up, then obviously that will help. But if there's just so many buyers, I don't see how this ends.
So right. So when interest rates go up at whatever point they go up, mm-hmm. What'll happen is the new payments are more expensive. And so that will back off demand a little bit. But also it means that if my two payments are more expensive, I'm going to have to sell, more people are going to have to sell the first one to finance the second one. So you'll have fewer people doubling up. So then those come on the market. And so what we don't yet know is, so in 2018, rates went from 3.8 to 4.8. And you could feel the demand backing off, and you could see the inventory rise. Yeah. Now we're at 2.8. Does that mean if rates go just to 3.5, is that when we feel it? Or do they have to go to 4.5 before we feel it? Mm-hmm. And how quickly do they get there? So those are, unknown, because who can predict interest rates really? But that's really the factor to keep our eye on. Yeah. For what's going to happen with inventory.
And how quickly did interest rates go down?
So interest rates have been going down for a decade, actually multiple decades. And so when we came out of the mortgage bubble burst, the crisis ended January 2011. And rates were 5 something, and then they have gone down to 2.5, 2.8 in that time. And so every year, basically, a little bit ups and downs, but every year, basically, it gets more affordable to own. And even in the last year, so we've had a 10% nationally, 10% home price increase in the last year, and which is a big up year.
Yes.
And even in that time, though, because rates have fallen so far, the monthly payments are more affordable in general. So therefore people are still buying. So we're super sensitive to that right now.
Okay, and so coming up on the busiest time for real estate is springtime. So what does that look like if inventory isn't going to match the demand? What happens there?
Yeah, so a few things are tricky. One, we're looking at all the leading indicators in the data right now are looking at easily another 10% price appreciation year over year price. But then of course now we're 20% in 2 years, that is starts to strain affordability for people whose incomes aren't going up.
Right.
So now it starts to get into an interesting challenge. Um, the the other impacts are demand is going to be high, supply is going to be low, and it's across the country. So
Mm-hmm.
the other thing that we are, that agents should be thinking about right now are there opportunities to bring listings to market? People who, for example, maybe own more than one property, right now is an unbelievably good time to sell, maximize your value, do fast transactions. And there are still consumers who maybe don't know that. They're afraid, or they're afraid pandemic wise. There's a lot of opportunity for communication there,
Yeah.
that agents can take advantage of.
Yeah, and we've talked a lot on the podcast about creating inventory because for agents right now, I mean, a lot of people are selling on their own for sale by owner because they can do it, especially with offers going in way above asking price and things like that. And that was actually one of my questions is where is the opportunity with agents? But I guess it is like kind of the same thing of you got to create inventory. You can call around, circle prospect, tell people the value of their home that maybe they haven't looked at in the last decade or whatever. Because while people probably know that the market is really hot, they maybe not know exactly what their home is worth or what they could cash out on some serious equity.
Yeah, for sure. And one of the things I like to do when we talk about market data, and especially the way we do it at Altos, is um, there are three questions for consumers in real estate: what's for sale, how much is my house worth, and how's the market? And so,
Yes.
and we focus on how's the market. So, yes, you tell them, okay, your house is worth this, but um, and they, like, right now their eyes may bug out of their head. But that's like one communications, one touch.
Yeah.
But with market data is fresh every week, and you can put it in their inbox every week. And so now you want to say, like, okay, my house is worth X, but are there a lot? Is it going to go quickly? Do I have to act now? Like, what if I overprice it? All of these are all how's the market questions. And that's what we answer in the market data and in the Altos market reports, so that you could, in your price range, if we are right below this threshold, we have 7 days on market. If we're above that threshold, it's 49. Like, you can see these really clearly in the data. And so that is the power of using market data in your communication. And for, like, creating inventory is a great way to a great label to use for it, is that the questions on the consumer's mind are not just how much is my house worth, although that's a great lead conversion, right?
Right.
That's but the next question of, do I act now? What's it will take? Do I have lots of competition? Is it growing or fading? All these questions are what we get to nurture the leads with each week. Put the data in their inbox, and then you get, with the opportunity. A lot of things we do with the Altos system are like, I can see who's opening their market reports, and now I can have a call list of people like, oh, I haven't talked to you in 6 years, but I see you're opening your market reports every week. Let's, have a conversation. So that's a real part of the, working data into the business.
Yeah, and it's like it's concrete things. It's not like just, oh yeah, you could sell your home and we could sell it soon, whatever. It's like data driven. Like, I can tell you exactly what's going to happen based on what's happening in the market right now. And
Yep.
one, you position yourself as the market expert, first of all. So that's a great thing as an agent prospecting to leads. And then you're right, you answer all of those different questions that they have instead of just like like answering things that maybe they actually don't care about or whatever, things like that.
Or yes, so a lot of times realtors face a credibility challenge. Like, well, of course you're going to tell me that you can sell my house really fast,
Right.
right? But using the data is one of the really powerful ways to do it is to say, hey, I just always like my clients to be informed.
Yeah.
I'm going to put this report in your inbox. Um, Keep an eye on this one number. If this number is rising, that means demand is increasing in your market. And we have this market action index in the Altos report. And then that way you say, it's not you delivering the message, it's the market delivering the message to the consumer, to the buyers. And so then they pick up the phone and they go, Haley, I've been watching this number. Like, it's time to take action. And
Right.
so like that's a great way to, so now they know it comes from Haley. She knows enough to say, like, here's the data. She's not being pushy or trying to sell me on something. Like,
Yes.
they pick up and they can use that to initiate with you.
Yeah. And what you were saying earlier about homes are expected to even have more worth and prices are expected to raise in the spring, it seems like a perfect time to call right now and be like, hey, it's looking like the market is going to continue to be hot. Let me show you all of these different like market insights and tell you the data just so you can, one, make an educated decision for yourself, but also let me help you out. Like, I'm an agent. Like, it just kind of seems like it fits really seamlessly, and right now seems like a really good time to reach out and say all these things that you could.
Yeah, exactly. And it's so as you're working on developing your database, through things like social, Facebook posts like, the market's crazy, here's my market report.
Yeah.
Check it out. And then the way we do it at Altos is like, they click through, they get the lead conversions built into the report itself, into the content. So then they come from Facebook and they sign up for your report. Now they are opting into your market report. And you can also see that, when we email these, people care about the market. They have opinions, they want to see what's happening. So you get really high open rates on market data emails, like 37% is what we get. And so now you get this really engaging content that they're opting into, for communication. So like that's a really strong way to use it.
Wow. Yeah. This seems like a no-brainer to add to your business to make sure that you are giving people the facts instead of just maybe stuff that isn't important right now. Because I think if you're not talking about the market right now, you probably seem like you don't know what you're talking about, or that you're not the expert to turn to. So
yeah, or maybe you're afraid or something,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, it's kind of like when the pandemic first hit, any content that wasn't about the pandemic was irrelevant. So anything right now that's not about the hot market and what's going to be happening is kind of irrelevant, especially as an agent.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Yeah, that's a really strong point. People know there's still lots of opinions. There's some, lots of people still have an opinion that, for example, that people who've been really impacted by the pandemic and they haven't been able to pay their mortgage, they're in the mortgage forbearance program. There are still a lot of the consumers especially buyers, who are assuming that some big wave of foreclosures is coming.
Right.
And it turns out that you can show in the data it's not coming. And so, like, if you're a buyer waiting, for the deal, the question is, how long are you going to wait? Because what's happened is, so there are still 2.1 million homeowners in the mortgage forbearance program. And these may be people that went from like 2 incomes to 1 income, and or they, maybe they're in the tourism industry and they haven't had any income for a year. There's still a lot of people that are deeply impacted. And so they've been in this forbearance program. The initial year has been extended to 15 months, so it's end of June before they will have to take action.
Right.
But here's they've been resolving. But the reason that those 2 million people aren't going to come in some big wave of foreclosures is because we've gained $1 trillion in equity in America this year. So if I've held onto my house, and even if I haven't made a mortgage payment in a year, I've made a lot of money on my house. And so even if I'm in a situation now where I'm never going to be able to get back into my old income and my old payment structure, I can sell. And the message from agents to the consumer is, if you're in this situation, we should sell your house now before you get in trouble with a payment, before you miss a payment. Because once you miss a payment, now you can't get a loan again. If we sell your house now you take your equity and you can move into a situation where you can be affordable long-term, and you're not in any trouble. And so you've gained a ton of equity this year.
Yeah.
So that is a message that we can see, but none of those folks are walking away from their house because they all made a bunch of money. they're scrambling to hold on, and so any of the payments, any loan modification they might do, they're going into a super low rate right now. So like all of those things are really aligned in favor of the people who are already in their houses.
Yeah.
And so there's not going to be any big wave of foreclosures. There's none.
I haven't thought about this, because you're right. People are just gaining equity by the minute, it seems like. Yeah. And so people that aren't making their payments right now, and the fact that they could just sell and then get that equity and put it back into their home and then have a more affordable monthly payment. This is crazy, because all I've heard, especially on like real estate Facebook groups and everywhere, is like foreclosures, they're coming. Oh my goodness. But the data is actually telling us differently. And I would trust the data over some hearsay of, oh yeah, like all these people can't afford anything. No, actually, like their home price skyrocketed during all of this.
Yeah. And so there's still a lot of that sort of bearish headline, although it's fading because people are starting to recognize how hot the market is. And there are some, and likely, that will have to do something, right? They will have to sell. And so it would make sense for them to sell. So, if we're wise, we can help them do that transaction and get to a stronger place.
Yeah, so I still think there is an opportunity for agents with this pre-foreclosure type of wave thing, where when they do have to paying their mortgage payments, that there will be a wave of like, I need help, make sure that, I don't miss a payment and I'm screwed, I have to go bankrupt or anything that happens like that. Then you can be the agent to help them through that and show them the data, like what they can do, like the equity they have and all those things. It sounds awesome.
Yeah, it super is. And it's so, now you take the market report and you put it in front and you're like, look, we can actually like list your house and sell it, and in our price range, things are going in 7 days. This is a good opportunity to not get behind the ball.
Yeah. And then as a real estate expert, like give them the options. Like, you could keep your home, we'd have to do this and this, or you're right, like maybe we do sell it and get you into a better situation. But this is awesome. I love talking about data and real numbers that we can look at, that kind of put all of the conspiracy, like weird stuff, all that away, and we can look at the numbers and see where the opportunity actually will be. I love this. Well, so, and the next question, we've kind of already talked about this a little bit, but what are some other signals for the market's trajectory in the upcoming months? Like, let's just talk about some more signals.
Yeah. So there are signals that we look at that I like to keep an eye on every week, for example, and they are. For example, I track percentage of homes on the market that have taken a price reduction.
Okay.
And typically, sort of rule of thumb for the national average, you can expect 35% of homes are initially overpriced, they take a price cut before they sell. And that sometimes that's strategic, sometimes it's accidental, it's like a wacky sell, whatever the reason is. But 35% they go, oops, I got to take a price, or like, okay, now take a price cut, and then we get the offers, we sell. And so if 35% is normal, then when only 25% or so need to take a cut, that's because some of those who overpriced got what they were asking. And so you can measure demand in this price reductions number. And so in typically hot markets, you'll see 25%. So 35% is normal. When the market's cool and like at that stretch at the end of 2018, so demand started backing off. Now 35% have thought they're overpriced, but 40 or 42% say, oh, it's not moving, got to take a price cut. So we can watch it like get hot and cool in that stretch. Right now, nationally, we're at, let me look it up real quick, 18%. So 35% thought they needed a price cut, but only 18% have taken one. That's crazy high demand. That's like the markets that are normally in that stage are like super hot Silicon Valley, like close-in markets that like have nothing for sale ever, and a bunch of super rich people want to buy it all the time. Like that's the kind of that market, and the whole country is in that mode right now. Like, yeah. So what that means, leading indicators, is if only 18% of the houses need to take a price cut, that means the ones that get their offer in March and they close in April those prices are already supported. And when they get an offer in March and they close in April, then the traditional, the headlines, the real estate headlines you're going to see in May, June, July are already written. They're already going to be real estate markets on fire. Then you can already see it through July.
Wow.
So like, as you're working with clients, like that's the message they're going to be seeing for months. You can now then we're going to keep our eye on interest rates. If interest rates spike between then we will know, we'll start seeing some beyond that, and maybe it turns. Now maybe everybody thinks it's hot, but it's cooled off a little. So that's where we want to keep our eye looking on that data every week, and what we can tell our clients to. Like we can say right now things are super hot, and here are the leading indicators that I want you to keep your eye on, so you know that if it starts cooling, and you want to list before it cools off.
Wow, that's interesting. I didn't know. First of all, it's only 18%. That's that kind of just gives you an idea of what's going on right now.
How nuts it is, yeah.
But also, like you said, yeah, it gives us an idea of kind of what it's looking like in the spring, and things aren't looking like they're slowing down anytime soon, at least.
Not anytime soon.
And a lot of homeowners want to know that information. Yeah. So that's cool.
Yeah. There's a couple others that we could look at. There's the metric of price increases, which is really fascinating. So this is the opposite. These are homes that were on the market maybe 90 days ago at a lower price, and now they're on at a higher price. Those are like flips, investor flips, that maybe like iBuyers coming in and buying at a lower price and relisting at a higher price. And what that one says is like when speculation and investor like activity starts to get really high, like that number starts climbing. So normally you might have 2, 3, 4, 5% in this investor flip category, like prices, homes coming back on. And right now for the whole country we're at 7%, and in some markets it's like 19, 20%, and that number is actually kind of scary to me. Like that number says to me things are super hot, like too hot, and there's speculation going on, and so part of me is in the boat of like I hope mortgage rates climb a little bit to slow things down, to cool things off, to give us a little more inventory, a little more selection, because some of those are a little scary.
Yeah, I was actually talking about, and I'm wondering this. I was talking to an agent about new construction homes because
Mhm.
it's super hot right now, obviously, like everything else. Um, at the rate that those are building and new construction's happening, I'm sure it's at a lot slower rate. But is that helping at all with this inventory or?
Yeah, so one of the reasons, one of the decade-long reasons that we're in the crisis we are right now is that we underbuilt um, for a decade. Coming out of the mortgage bubble,
Mm,
the 20-year average is like a 1.5 million new homes a year.
yes.
And for, we were at 700,000 and inched our way up. So, 800,000 too few, 500,000 too few homes. So millions of homes underbuilt. And only now, 10 years, 11 years later, are we back to our long-term average of 1.5 million homes. So the good news is we're starting to build more. We're getting, we're back to, but we're only now back to the long-term average. We're not even above the average, right? So it's been
Mm.
a long decade of tightening inventory.
Wow. Yeah, I think the agent said like 90% of the deals he's doing right now are all just new construction.
Just
People
new
are just getting
construction.
into homes and
Yeah,
because the
and
inventory, like, it's just crazy. So it's
it's
just easier
crazy.
to build a house.
Yeah, and there are and some of the things that that will hopefully be that are bullish for us in the next 10 years are we have so the demand is here. One of the questions I get a lot is like, can it hold up?
Yeah.
And one of the ways we know that one of the bullish signals is millennials. There are more millennials than any other generation, and the
Mm.
millennials are now 35, hitting 35, which is peak home buying years. So the biggest generation ever is rolling into their biggest demand part of their life. So
Oh, wow.
that's the next 5, 10 years of demand. Um, the doubling up phenomenon, has been like the boomers buying one next one and keeping. So the boomers are holding on to way more inventory than anybody else has before. But the good news is that the boomers are now 75 rolling to 80, and so hopefully some of them will want to unload some of that
Right.
inventory so that they can take that equity and then move, for example, into maybe new construction designed for people who are aging boomers. And so, like, that's where inventory could have, like, hopefully will come from in the future. um,
Yeah.
but like, and that's the next 10 years of phenomenon.
Because, yeah, I mean, as we're talking, it's like all of these things are leading to the perfect storm, it feels like, in the market right now. Interest rates are low, pandemic happens, people are keeping their homes, like all this stuff. So, yeah, I was wondering, I was like, okay, this is like a black hole we're going into.
Yeah.
But it does sound like hopefully that will happen. Or is there anything else that we're looking at that that could give us some sort of inventory?
So the other big thing, in the inventory category is that our policy, whether it's tax policy, all the policy, national,
Yeah.
state, it's all aimed at the homeowner. It's all been aimed at keeping people in their homes. The pandemic policy is about helping the homeowner. The like the costs, the tax breaks are all designed for the person who already owns property. And
Yes.
so and all the policymakers, of course, they're still focused on the pandemic crisis. They're like all the policies working on that and have not noticed at all the crisis that we're the next crisis that we're facing. And
Right.
so you can imagine that there might be some policy that'd help. One of the things that we've done policy wise in the last year is the foreclosure moratorium. So you've been unable to foreclose on a homeowner, even if they didn't go into a forbearance program. You can't foreclose on them, and that's been extended and keeps getting extended also. Now, at some point, we're going to be able to resume that process. So even people not pandemic related, but through whatever things that stop paying their mortgage, we need to be able to foreclose on the house and get that back onto the market. And in the mortgage crisis, there's two states have two different ways you can foreclose. One means you go to court, one means you don't go to court. The court ones take a long time, judicial foreclosure. The non-court ones, 90 days, and you can sell the house. The non-judicial foreclosures, the ones that went quickly, which while being less homeowner specific and more market focused, those markets recovered out of the mortgage crisis years before the ones that were judicial states. So what that means is that policymakers could make decisions that are more market-centric rather than homeowner-centric.
Okay.
And so allowing foreclosures to happen and happen quickly, doing things like property taxes right now, and 1031 exchanges, all these things are like designed for you to keep your house and to keep your wealth and to not lose it, and even when you want to move. And all of those things make it a really good deal to keep owning your real estate, to the detriment of the 70 million millennials who want to buy.
Right. Interesting. So, and that seems like maybe not good news for people that are homeowners right now, but it sounds better for the people that want to be homeowners.
Well,
that just keep the market just keep going? Like, that'll help?
Yeah, it is. And it's, so, I mean, all of the policy right now, all of it is focused on the owner. And as a result, it's unbalanced. And so, you could say that, yes, yes, more market-centric would maybe take away some of these advantages for the owner, but that would also mean the next time that owner wants to buy a new place, move up, they'd have more options, right? So in general, I'm of the view that I like to have a better functioning market.
Yes.
More fluid, more inventory is good, and more inventory is good. For all the participants, that more transactions happen. Like, we want all these things to happen.
Right. So it just helps everything go more smoothly. Like, we wouldn't be in the situation that we're in right now. So it just helps the market keep going, and that's what we all want.
That's what we all want. That's exactly right, and everybody wants that too. Ultimately, you want it to be high functioning all the way through.
Cool. We did have a question before. Robert was asking about for sale by owners, so I wonder if you have any thoughts about this. He said that he listed his first 4 homes from for sale by owners, but he wants to know how to communicate to them now, since obviously the market's hot. They want equity, things like that. Like, do you have any insight into that?
I think all the time with for sale by owners, these are like, I can do it better.
Yes.
I can save money. Like, I don't know what I'm paying you for. Like, that's all the rationale, right, with the for sale by owners. And so market data, a couple things happen. One is, by being the person who gives them the market data, you, as you pointed out, you're the expert. Like, you're the one with the resources. Like, that alone is when they're fed up with having to show their own house. Like, that's the reason to call you.
Yes.
So, like, that is even if you're not going to convince them. Like, they say, well, if it goes in 7 days and it takes me 14, I'll take the 14. Like, even if you're not going to be able to convince them that that they're actually, it makes sense to use a professional,
yes.
then being there with the resources and generous with the resources and valuable with the information, like, that is the reason that they pick up and call you when it's time to call you.
Right. Good. Thank you, Robert, for the question, and thank you for answering. We are getting close to the end here of the podcast, so I want to cover anything that we haven't talked about. Are there any other signals, market things that you think are important for agents to know right now?
Let's see.
That was probably a big question.
Yeah, big question, but that's okay. The way I'd like to think about it for agents is you want to use your market data in all aspects of the business. So we've talked a lot about lead gen and lead nurture, right? Like being in their inbox every week. But when you sit down at the listing presentation, you want to have that market data on the top of the stack and you say, I want you to look at this one number. I'm going to put this in your inbox every week. And I want you to look at one number because this is the market telling us, where the demand is. You want to do it when you walk with the buyers and you say, like, look, in your price range, it's 0 days on market. If we want a house, we need to act now. We need to do it properly well. So this is not just it's not just like a lot of people come to us. And by the way, let's not forget to give people a coupon before we're done.
Yes, we will.
But a lot of agents come to us when they say, "Hey, I'm looking to generate new leads," and great. Like it's market data is a great way to generate new leads, and it's a great way to nurture leads that are coming in from all other sources, right? So now they've come in from whatever the million sources are. You want to nurture them with market data, as we've been talking about why it's so valuable. But it's also, when you're in the meetings with them, when you're talking to, in the listing presentation, like all the way through the business, really the market data is relevant in there. So it's not just like like a one-time or not just a little lead gen thing to use.
I love that.
Something
I love that the market is always changing, so it's always important to stay up to date. And so I do want to give the REDX promo code to Altos Research. Will you just tell our audience what they get with that?
Yeah. So for those who wanted sign up for Altos and get the market data and use it in their business and do all the drip and things, altosresearch.com. Just go to altosresearch.com. And when you sign up this month or in the next month, use a REDX 2021, REDX, REDX 2021 is the coupon code that we set up for listeners and REDX users. And you get $30 off for 3 months. Like it's a good deal. So
Awesome.
Make sure you use that coupon code, and love to see you. And we love working with REDX folks because we have a lot of them.
We will put that down in the comments. So if you want to refer back to that promo code so you know exactly what to put in. I also want to mention we do have an integration with Altos Research inside of Vortex. So if you're already a customer of REDX, you can purchase data insights to put right inside Vortex. I think we'll have that on screen, or we'll put a link to our data insight product as well. That just gives you market insights, financial insights, things like that are relevant, so that whenever you call a lead, you can tell them exactly what's going on, just like we've talked about today in this podcast. But thank you so much, Mike. Thank you for the promo code to our audience. Thank you for taking the time to be here with us today, to spend 45 minutes talking about all of this stuff. I think I wanted to talk about so much more because this is so interesting and important, and it affects all of us. So I really appreciate the conversation. Also, for our listeners, I just want to say, if you aren't already, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. That will give you notifications when we have new podcasts. We are here every single Thursday around the same time, so you can sign up there. You can also go to our website and sign up for our podcast, theredx.com/podcast, and sign up there to get emails to when we have podcasts. But I think that wraps up today's podcast. Thank you so much again, Mike. I can't thank you enough.
Really, my pleasure.
Keep saying it. And we will see everybody next Thursday.